Hi everyone, so welcome to what will be the first part of a year-long series where I go through and design and build my own garden office. The reason for doing this is because when I first moved into this house about 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago now, it's a 3-bed house, so it was enough room for myself and my wife and our daughter, and had a spare room for guests or possibility of another child. A few months after I moved in here, the commute from where I was from my home to the co-working space where I was working from before I moved grew from about 30 minutes long to about 2 hours long. And I got to miss some things like, bath time, bedtime, things like this for my daughter. So I decided to move my office back home. I still work from the co-working space. I still operate my business out of there. But I tend to only go in one day a week now. And I was able to use this room, which has been my office for the past about 2 years. This month of October actually, and it's been a fantastic room. It's a really good size. It's a really good size. It will be a really good size bedroom. But my wife and I are delighted to say that we're having another baby.
We are expecting.
Yeah! And we will need this room to be the nursery, to be their bedroom. I don't fancy, being able to missing anything or having to leave home again. I like being around on a daily basis. I like to see my daughter, I want to see my new baby, support my wife when she needs it, and working from home for me it just works on so many levels right now. So the question came up of, well, where am I going to work? How am I going to work? And I know a lot of people work from their dining room table and they use their laptop, and that's absolutely fine. I like being comfortable. I like sitting in a good chair, a screen, being everything being ergonomic. And I like having a big screen connected up so I can concentrate on tasks and having that real kind of desktop environment, really, even though I use a portable machine. So that's not possible in any other area of our house. House isn't that big. So the opportunity of building a garden office came up. So speaking to friends and family over the past couple of weeks, explaining what I intend to do, a common question I've been asked is, why are you building it? Why don't you just buy one? Surely it'll take a lot more of your time to build it than to buy one. And they're absolutely right. It would be. You can buy one and within a week, more or less, you can get it kind of installed and that's done. But they do cost quite a lot more money, and you don't get the choice of shape, materials, and customization that you get through if you were building it yourself. I would much rather buy it than build it. But the difference, at least from my calculations at the moment, and I've got a huge spreadsheet, going through all of this stuff, from all kinds of materials. And different levels of materials. If I want to go really cheap, if I want to go really expensive in some areas, the difference of a similar sized building is about £4,000, and that's a lot of money when you've got a new baby on the way that will be put to better use somewhere else. So. But one of the main benefits is being able to split that cost down. Even though you're saving £4,000, the cost of building it you can split down again and just buy the materials that you need or the materials that you want on a monthly basis. So you get paid and you buy all the timber, and then you get paid and then you buy all the sheet material, and then you get paid and then you buy the roof and so on. And by doing that, you can split the cost over the course of 6 months, 9 months, a year, however long you want to take to build it. And I'm giving myself a year simply because when the baby arrives, which is March at the moment, 6 months down the line is roughly when they're going to definitely need their own room. And at that point, I would have wanted to have moved in to my garden office. So that's October next year, October 2019. So my intention is my rough timescale for things, is to apply for planning, get the building work done that needs to happen in my garden, and then start. And whilst that's all happening, I can be planning the garden office down to a suitable level. And then from every month on from there till about June, purchase all the materials that I'd need to be able to put together the building, and then spend about 3 months next summer building it. And 3 months is a really long time, but I want to give myself enough time so that if I ever run into a problem, or if I wasted something and I had to buy something again, then I've got the opportunity to do that and I'm not feeling too rushed right at the end. And I'm trying to finish building it in kind of late August, early September, because having just been through September, I've noticed how much more wet and windy it can become here in the UK. So I would really want a weatherproof building kind of up, ideally before the beginning of September. So that's why I'm building it over buying it. And at the moment, my calculations, and this is due to change because I haven't finished them yet, but my costs for building the garden office is about £3,500. And I'm not skimping anywhere that I can see. I'm using good materials. I'm meeting or exceeding building regulations. If I needed them, I don't need building regulations, but things like insulation, it's not going to be this drafty little shed that I work out of. That's not what I want. This is a purpose-built room that is going to be the same standards that you get in a house, possibly even slightly better in places. In the corner of my garden, it's going to be warm, it's going to be comfortable, it's got heat and light and power, and it's hopefully, if my plan goes to plan, then it's going to be great. This is my consumer unit, fuse box, if you will, that obviously controls all the electrics in the house. Now, the first part of the garden office build actually relies on this being replaced. And the simple reason for that is there's a couple of odd things in here. Firstly is that only one side of this is protected. So this fuse box is now about 18 years old and only one side is RCD protected. So I'm upgrading it to one that has dual RCD protection on both sides, essentially. The other odd thing as well is that some of these, I don't know if you can see that, are C breakers. Now those are usually for commercial properties and B is usually for residential. I don't know why there are C breakers in here. It was like this when I moved into my house, but they're there, and obviously replacing the fuse box will allow me to get rid of those and change them for the right ones. The next problem that it needs to be addressed by replacing this unit is that there's no more space on this really for doing anything kind of major to the house, and it needs to be upgraded to a larger one with more space so that I can run 2 external cables out the back of here, down the side of my house, and one will go eventually to my garage for the purposes of hopefully charging an electric car, but the other one will obviously run along the side of the house in a trench along with some network cable to the garden office. So it's quite important that obviously all of this is upgraded, and that really is the first step in kind of doing all of this. It's not very interesting, it's not very sexy, I can't do a time-lapse video showing it, but ultimately it's the foundation for all of these things. The other reason I wanted it done now is because I'm about to have my hallway painted, and if they take this out and the other one leaves a mark or anything, the last thing I want is to have a nice painted hallway with like a horrible old colour showing behind it or something. So that's all being done today, and hopefully once it's all done we'll have a much better electrical system than before. So the electrician's just gone, and there you can see the new consumer unit, and both sides dual RCD protection, loads of space on it to be able to put new stuff in it, and specifically for the 2 armoured cables that will go out the back, one run into the garage, one run into the home office. So here's my garden as it currently stands. What you can see here is the neighbour has already done what we intend to do. So she has extended her garden and her fence right the way to the boundary of her property. What we've got is what used to be the fence that ran along the back of all these houses, and then a short 4-foot fence that was between every house. Now, we don't mind our neighbours, but at the same time, we'd like it to be consistent. So what we plan to do is knock all this down, knock down this fence, knock down this fence, which both of these desperately need to be replaced anyway. This post here is held up with all kinds of things. Remove all of this overgrown hedgerow that has never been maintained properly. And what that will give us is approximately 2 to 2.5 meters extra onto the end of our garden. And as you can imagine, that will make a huge difference to being able to put in a garden office in the back corner here, which is where I intend to put it. I think it will only come out to about where this corner of an old, this used to be a brick barbecue here, and I think the garden office will come out roughly to here. So you can see it really doesn't take much off of the current garden, which is a pretty good size. Now, there are a couple of benefits to replacing the fences and kind of doing all of this. So firstly is we would get a lot more light in our garden by removing all of this. We'd also have new fences, so obviously for along the back and the side, and I think what we're going to do is also clad this side of the fence, just so we can have all the cladding facing inwards, so it looks nice and consistent all the way around the garden. But also, as you can see down here, and although he's not out at the moment, we have a tortoise, and by having new fences and ones without gaps all underneath, it means that he will have the entire run of the garden as opposed to this kind of little area at the moment. Now, the general plan, this changes on a day-to-day basis, but the general idea is the home office will be here, the garden office will be here, and then on the other side, level with the front of the garden office, will be decking that runs all the way along to the other side, and this will add more space than we currently have, but also it will mean that it's be nice and flush across the back, so things like mowing the grass, trimming the grass, things like that will be a much easier job than having to currently go kind of all the way around here all the time than we currently do. That is, at the moment, the very rough and general idea of what I intend to do. So it's quite a lot of work just to get the garden to a point where it's going to be suitable to put in a garden office. So that's going to take a bit of time. Now, you can't just remove hedgerows at any time of the year, so you've got to wait for birds to stop nesting. So that basically limits you to kind of winter, really, to be able to remove those. So if everything goes to plan, my intention is to try and remove all of that in the winter. The other thing we need to do is we need to apply for planning permission. Now, normally it wouldn't be a problem to just, knock down a fence, take out a hedgerow and put your fence back in again. However, because we are moving our fence back to the boundary of our property, that falls within a metre of a highway. Now, it varies from county to county, but my understanding is that they measure it from different points depending on what county you're in. And in the county of Baines, which is Bath and North East Somerset in England, the rule is a metre. You have to be a metre back from the highway in order to put in a 6-foot fence. If you want to be within a metre of a highway, you can put in a 4-foot fence. Now, I think the reason they do this is so that you're not obstructing the view of traffic, but we're on a flat section of road. There's a flat length of road behind us, so we're not going to be obscuring anything, and a 4-foot fence would just allow everyone to just look into the back of our garden. So I'm currently in the process of putting together some diagrams and models and things like that for the purposes of planning permission. SketchUp really was this only thing I could find, this only app I could find, that seemed to do accurate measurements on a 3D model that you could just build yourself. They don't limit you to using it for anything. So you can, if you want to create a little wooden box and, you're a carpenter, then you can plan that out in SketchUp, down to whatever accuracy you want. Or if you're designing a house and a garden and, you're a building planner or constructor, you can do that in SketchUp as well. So it gave me quite a lot of flexibility there. And the reason I wanted to do it in SketchUp, really, other than just to try SketchUp and make a 3D model, was that I could create a very, very accurate plan of my garden. I could put a camera in kind of any position, take screenshots, export images, and I could send that as part of my planning application so that I didn't have to keep redrawing things the whole time. And that's it for this part. Thanks very much for watching. I appreciate this was a bit of a mish-mash of stuff. it's a few random things kind of cobbled together. Obviously, you can see I've already done a certain amount of stuff and planning and everything. But I'll see you in the next part, which will probably be much more focused and will most likely be around the construction and work that's going to go on in my garden. So thanks very much again, and see you then.